so we'll start. Before we call to order, I would like to remind members of council, if you have a conflict, please be sure to declare. We have in front of us for tonight's meeting of the Regular Council of the District of Sechelt, Wednesday, March 2nd, an agenda. Could I have an adoption? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. We have, before I start with our appointments and delegations, I'd just like to say there's quite a group here tonight. We have our fire captain, Bill Higgs. We have the chair from the SCRD, Gary Knorr, and a delegation fairly large from the Sunshine Coast Regional District. And I'll ask you please to come forward and introduce whoever's going to do our presentation.
Well, thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Thank you very much, Madam Acting Mayor and Council. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. And we certainly also appreciate our board chair coming to support us as well. So with me this evening, I have Mr. Brian Soji, who is the General Manager of Infrastructure Services. And as you will see, he has under his umbrella the largest share of our capital projects that are planned for this budget. I also am pleased to introduce our Deputy Treasurer, Sarah Zacharias, who is also going to be presenting tonight. And then beside her is Brad Wing, and he works in our finance department. So we're again lucky to be here tonight. So I'm going to just kick us off, and I'm going to point it in this direction. Okay. Sorry, in this direction. Okay, thank you. So this is a quick outline of what we're going to share with you this evening. Last night we had the opportunity to present to the town of Gibsons, and so it's the same presentation. So we're going to talk a little bit about our budget process at the regional district, some of the 2016 figures after round one, and our assessments, which actually generated some conversation last night, and what the taxation and the fees look like, again, the projects, and then any other questions that you might have. So this is a slide I'm sure that you've seen before of the regional district or geographically. And I think the one thing that we like to highlight on this slide from our perspective is that we operate as a federation. And that's important to our decision-making process. We have 45 services that we provide, and this is the highlights of all of the services. In the bottom, what we also like to highlight are the things that we don't do, and this is important for the residents on the Sunshine Coast, understanding the roles. And so we do not manage or fund the roads, policing, or the other services, but those are the two largest ones. And these are the different ways that we deliver the service. And the second last bottom bullet is actually the one that's the most relevant to the District of Sechelt in terms of the relationship. And there are three main components that we have in terms of how we deliver our services. The regional services that fall into that category, the localized services, and then the discretionary services. So for some of you, I recognize this might be old hat for you as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Sarah.
Thank you. So throughout our planning and budget process, the budget process starts with the board's strategic plan, as well as the development of the goals and objectives. From there, we go on to the annual departmental work plans, as well as the preparation of budget proposals. That is followed by 2 rounds of budget discussion and the final adoption of the budget on March 24th. Throughout the year, we have variance reporting quarterly with strategic plan updates throughout the year. So our 2016 timeline. So in January and February, we have 2 rounds of budget. The strategic plan was adopted in January. We've got budget adoption on March 24th. Throughout the rest of the year, we have variance reporting and work plan updates. And in the fall of 2016, we'll begin working on the 2017 year budget. So budget proposal criteria were developed to align proposals with the strategic plan. So these criteria assist the board efficiency as well as transparency in decision making. So the different criteria include mandatory, so safety, imminent asset failures, those types of things. Then we've got our identified in strategic plan. So an example of this is the Regional Economic Development MOU. Then we have our identified in the integrated 5-year plan, our low cost, high value, so small projects that are funded through surpluses, and our other. So I'm going to pass it over to Brad.
Tag team.
So key items impacting the 2016 budget. We have some ongoing internal projects. We're going through a corporate software upgrade, continued development of the asset management plan, internal service reviews, and development of service plans. These projects don't have a direct impact on taxation in 2016, but they are impacting resources. So our board has been very cognizant of the allocation of resources to these projects. These are really laying the groundwork for more efficient delivery of both services and our internal business processes moving forward. On the taxation side, we have a newly ratified collective agreement. It was a 4-year agreement. For 2016, there's a 1% increase in bargaining unit wages that are impacting taxation. Our transit service saw a deficit of approximately $130,000 this year. Now, that was mainly due to a change in the funding model implemented by BC Transit partway during the year. And that was something that was unexpected and we weren't able to plan for it. But what we expect is that change will lead to stability in the service going forward. Of that deficit, we've used what reserves are available to mitigate it. So approximately $105,000 of that will need to be funded through taxation in 2016. The bottom, the Regional Economic Development Charter, that's obviously still under discussion. What you see there is the estimated contributions by the rural areas, and then the municipalities have their own funding contributions. Overall, the operating budget for the regional district this year is just over $35 million. And that's a very high level view. It includes debt servicing and planned contributions to reserves in addition to your day-to-day operating expenses. The capital budget at just over $15 million. As you can see, it's higher than it has been in any of the previous 4 years. And as Jeanette mentioned, that's largely being driven by 2 projects in the regional water service, being the universal metering in the rural areas and the Chapman Lake Access Expansion Project. Distribution of the operating budget amongst our various divisions. Recreation and cultural services makes the lion's share at 34%. So that's your recreation facilities, libraries, museums, community parks. Water and wastewater at 19%, the second largest. And then environmental services, that's solid waste at 13%. Transportation services, that would be transit at 12%. Again, the capital budget, you can see of the $15 million, 80% of that for the water and wastewater services. So definitely the lion's share of that budget. Looking at assessments, it was a good news, bad news year for assessments overall. The house owned pulp and paper closure certainly had an impact, but I think a very timely addition to the assessment rolls was the Box Canyon Independent Power Project in the utilities class, which mitigated most of that reduction that we saw from house sound pulp and paper. So overall in the regional district, a 5.18% increase in assessments. For the district at Sechelt, you can see over the average at 7.38%. Now those numbers are comprised of two things. One is changes in market value of properties, and the other is non-market change, which is mainly comprised of new construction. Overall taxation for the regional district after round one increased by $140,000, 0.81%. The district of Sechelt's share or taxation year over year increased by just under 38,000 at 1.24%. So that's a direct reflection of the assessments going up higher than average compared to the other areas, results in a higher share of taxation. That doesn't mean that individual residents will see a taxation increase. Here, looking at the average residential taxation changes for the district of Sechelt, we're looking at a decrease of 2.27%. So I think the best way to explain that is, although the pie, so to speak, is getting bigger in terms of taxation going up, there's a larger assessment base, so everyone's piece gets a little bit smaller. So,
Good change.
This slide shows a very high-level, approximate distribution of what a district of Sechelt's tax bill would look like as far as the different taxing authorities. So the regional district portion would comprise approximately 18%. The values you see there are based on a $400,000 home with 60% improvements. And again, these values are entirely dependent on individual assessments. So just an approximate oops. I went too far there. Parcel taxes and user fees. Impacting the district of Sechelt here would be the regional water service. Combined parcel tax and user fees for a single family dwelling will be increasing by just over $12 or about 2.5%. That increase is in line with the financial model that was developed as part of the comprehensive regional water plan. The other item of note here is the community recreation parcel tax. That parcel tax sole purpose is to service the debt that funded the construction of the Sechelt Aquatic Center and the Gibsons and Area Community Center. At the conclusion of the parcel tax roll review, which is in progress right now, we expect that rate will increase by around $3 due to higher debt servicing costs this year. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah.
Thank you. So the highlights of the new projects for 2016 include ports, where we have some repairs that are being completed, as well as additional dock inspections. Under environmental sciences, so regional solid waste, we have several operating as well as capital projects. Water utility services, so here are big ticket items. So we've got the Chapman Lake access expansion, as well as universal metering phase 2. So the two of those together total over $9.5 million. So planning and development, we have the Regional Economic Development MOU. Recreation and culture, we've got increases in the operating grants for the Sechelt Library, as well as increases for museum operations. Parks, all electoral areas will see a continued improvement to the parks. So the staffing plan for 2016 is down slightly from 2015. So decisions for round 2, we have the fire departments. They will be meeting in March on what will be coming forward to budget. We have regional solid waste, so the green waste drop-off facility as well as waste reduction initiative. The regional water, so Chapman Lake and groundwater investigation. Community recreation and parks. We've got some lighting upgrades as well as hot tub replacement in Gibson's and a few other projects. We are looking to finalize all the budgets in preparation for budget adoption. So the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District, the Sechelt Hospital is a $45.6 million project. Phase 3, so the renovation project, is slated to begin in 2016 and is valued at $5.2 million. Additionally, $550,000 is being funded for the closed loop medication management system. So overall in 2016, there's a lower tax estimate due to a reduction in debt payments. If there are any questions or if anybody would like additional information, we encourage you to visit our website or contact our office. Thank you.
If you will, I think some of our councillors have questions for you. Councillor Inkster.
Thank you. You mentioned, and Janet, I'll go through probably you to the last speaker.
Sure.
And I guess Brad, because he mentioned it as well. There was one piece of there was a slight change in requisition based on debt servicing change.
Right.
And then it was just mentioned that the other one has went down because of the debt servicing percentage change. So there was a difference in the two. So obviously, I guess they're borrowing from different places. In that particular case, because one's going up, one's going down. Brad mentioned one's going up. I think he knows what I'm talking about. And Sarah mentioned one's going down in the last slide. And I'll just put the other question after that. Just maybe Brian can answer to yourself. The Chapman Creek piece, the expenditure for $0.5 million, I guess, for the lowering. I'm getting a lot of questions where that project's at. And hopefully, if it's moving ahead, that it will be ready for this summer if, in fact, something like last summer happens again.
Certainly. So we'll have the first question, and we'll start with Brad. How about that?
Sure.
So with respect to the debt for the hospital district, that decrease is, I believe, a result of expiring debt from previous projects. On the community recreation, that change is a result of a change in the actuarial rate from the Municipal Finance Authority. So the interest that they're realizing on the funds that are set aside to repay that debt at its expiry are lower than expected. So they do a reduction in the rate that we are able to apply or against the principal. So as a result, principal payments go up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Further questions?
And there was the Chapman Creek one.
Oh, right. Chapman Creek first.
Thank you. Yeah, where we're at with the Chapman Lake expansion project is we've retained the consulting firm that's helping us with the design, the approval process, and the approval process is probably the fundamental aspect that we need to get moving on. And it's AECOM, so they've been retained since the middle of January. And our first step is the consultation and engagement with the approval process. We have BC Parks, the Ministry of Forest, Land and Natural Resources for the water permit, for the water licensing aspect, and definitely working with the First Nations. So that's the first part, and we're moving forward with that right now. And once we get that moving, then once the snow melts, we'll start working on the design. And our goal is definitely to have something in place before the end of summer this year, whether it's something that's temporary or whether it's the permanent structure. we definitely want to have something in place so we don't have to go to stage 4 restrictions again.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Mueller.
Yeah, thank you. Just a follow-up on that one. I think most of us were here in the summer when we had the meeting here at stage 4, water restrictions. It was certainly an emergency for this town. And I think everybody wants to avoid that again, certainly. And so I think perhaps around the water issue, that's one of those ones we want to pay extra attention to. And maybe if it's permitted, we could have another expanded dialogue before it hits the summer on that particular issue, just more in depth, because I know a lot of people have questions about it. I keep hearing about it. It's basically the #1 issue. So thanks for that.
Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. One of the big concerns about that is we are encouraging people to grow crops. And then inside of the water restrictions, they're not able to water them. So in light of, what we could anticipate this summer, I think we'd like to see that looked at, so that if people are actually growing food, which we are telling them on one hand to do, we then also want to make it so that they can water them. And I don't know what that looks like, but it's a consideration that we'd looked at. Another thing, and I think this is in your area as well, you indicate in there that you're doing an organics management strategy plan. Are you also in that looking at what the District of Sechelt is doing with regards to organics collection? Is that part of the discussion inside of that strategy plan?
Yeah, the organics management plan is looking at the whole region. So, it's coming out of the, we did an audit, a waste audit, and basically 49% of the material that's disposed is organics. So that's where that's coming from, and it's to develop a strategy. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, and that's the whole purpose of developing that strategy this year. But it will be region-wide, and it will be looking at existing systems as well as what we could do to do more.
Any further? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Worship. Well, I had to stop and think about it for a moment. Certainly to echo comments that other councillors have made, certainly the water is a big issue. The second biggest issue I'm hearing about is, are you still going to be putting in water meters? And I know I've been at some of the discussions, but there's a lot of people that are really annoyed that we're going to go ahead with water meters. And I just make that as a comment so that you're aware of it, because I'm hearing that one just as much as I'm hearing the increased water level, okay, and required for summer months. Just a comment for you. Thank you.
Did you want to comment?
Well, I thought I heard a question there about, are we proceeding with water metering? And the answer is yes. It's also identified in comprehensive regional water plan, and the plan is focused on not just supply, building more supply. It's also looking at demand, so taking a two-prong approach to that. And metering is a fundamental tool that we need in order to reduce demand. And the projections is it'll be 20 to 25% reduction, which is big.
Thank you. I'll just say that I know amongst the plans prior to metering is a good education program so that people will understand the value of having meters and measurable baselines to go from. So it isn't just a simple run out and connect everybody. There will be a lot more involved. So thank you all for your presentation. We'll give them a moment to gather, and then we'll bring our next delegation to the microphone. And it's the One Straw Society, Ocean Vegetables Community Gardens. And if you would please speak into the mic and introduce yourselves.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kim Chi, and I'm the Food Systems Network Coordinator for One Straw Society, and I'm also one of the acting coordinators for the Ocean Vegetables Community Garden.
My name's Laura Walker. I'm the co-assistant for the Food Network Systems for One Straw Society and co-organizing with Kimchi the Ocean Veggies Community Garden. Thank you.
We just wanted to start by first off saying thank you to the Sechelt First Nation, just honoring them, just recognizing that we're on their traditional territory, and then also to give an extra thank you to the District of Sechelt and the Council for hearing us tonight and allowing us to be here to present. So thank you very much. As mentioned, we're here to present about the Ocean Vegetables Community Garden, which is located just about a block from here, and it's on Ocean Avenue between Dolphin and Cowrie Street. So I just thought we would give a little bit of history for those of you that aren't aware. So the gardens started in 2013 by Don Robb, who is now passed, and currently offers a variety of programs and services, and those include a community planting party and work party, which are held in the spring and the fall of each year, which engages the community in the planting and for cleaning up the garden beds. Those also include free workshops and snacks for people to come and enjoy. We also have access for the entire community to free organic food that's harvested from 27 raised garden beds, demonstrations of organic and sustainable growing practices, using a lot of permaculture techniques, and places to gather with community, as well as a place to garden and connect with nature. So anyone in the community is welcome to garden. We have created partnerships with many people in the community. Those partnerships include the Sechelt Alternative School, Arrowhead, the Grow Your Own Dinner and Live and Learn programs, the Sechelt First Nations, the Sechelt Youth Center, Salish Soils, the Sunshine Coast Fruit Tree Project, Sunshine Coast Seed Collective, Terra Tea, and St. Hilda's Church. We also invite participation from all local residents through volunteerism, visioning, and education. So let's see if I can, there you go, perfect. So our mission is to create a free public community food garden that acts as an interactive site to demonstrate and provide food security, ecological gardening, and educational programming while providing a vibrant, safe space for cultivating community and collaboration across generations and cultures. The community space strives to be diverse, inclusive, and engaging, and through educational programming, volunteer opportunities, site maps, and interpretive signs, the site will offer knowledge of food and medicine cultivation, conservation of nature, and honoring of traditional culture. The vision is to continue to garden and nurture the existing beds and plant an ecological perennial food garden on the remaining area of the boulevard, along with implementing more infrastructure to create a living sanctuary. I'm going to pass it over to Laura now.
Thanks. The proposed additions will feature native food and medicine, including plants of the coastal First Peoples. We'll also include other perennials that proliferate in this bioregion and use techniques like xeriscaping and drought management techniques. Some examples may include trees, shrubs, herb layers, flowers, and root crops, as well as ground covers. And in order to provide more places to gather and create sanctuary for the local residents, we'd like to build a covered seating area with a table and integrate pathways throughout the gardens, as well as restore the existing cob bench and place a roof over it. For education, we will label all plants, provide maps of the gardens, and install signs at the entrances to the space. Regular programming will be offered on sites on topics such as gardening, composting, seed saving, propagation, and pruning. We will address a variety of environmental issues, including water, soil building, and climate change by demonstrating regenerative ways to garden ethically and naturally. Techniques include rainwater catchment off of structures and in barrels, wicking beds, composting, mulching, cover cropping, and companion and guild planting, as well as forest gardening and natural building. To provide access to gardening tools for coordinators and volunteers and to enhance the aesthetics of the space, we'd like to build a small storage shed and some storage boxes that will double as additional seating in the gardens. These will allow us to keep tools like shovels, pitchforks, rakes, wheelbarrows, as well as store plant pots and other supplies out of sight. We would also like to initiate annual projects with the local schools to create art mosaics for the garden beds, adding vibrancy to the area, especially during winter months. We hope to implement the garden over a period of 2 years, starting this spring. We are already engaging the community for input on design. The project completion will be led by local professionals and volunteers, and then be stewarded and maintained by 2 coordinators, organizations including Grow Your Own Dinner, Sunshine Coast Fruit Tree Project, the Sechelt Alternative School, and the Sunshine Coast Seed Collective, as well as community members through a volunteer program. Of course, 2-scale drawings for all structures will be given to the District of Sechelt and will be approved and permitted before installation. Recognizing that food is a universal need, we are creating a fully accessible and free-to-harvest site, addressing issues of food security while offering opportunity for employable skills development and accessible education. Our project invites a gathering space for diverse groups, including but not limited to First Nations, seniors, adults with mental and physical disabilities, youth, and impoverished people. This garden will help to create an interconnected, safe, and involved community, encouraging a culture of earth stewardship and preservation of native plant species and reconnecting us to our roots.
So we have some images here. So these first 2 slides are of the existing garden as it is now, but we are proposing that we would add a 3-bin composting system to address concerns of smell and other pest issues. The compost bins would probably remain locked, and that would be accessible by stewards of the garden and avid volunteers. So people who are in the gardens regularly would have access. And mostly it would be used for weeds and other kind of green waste that would come from the gardens, but would also act as a demonstration with signage and things like that. Further down the gardens, how do I work the little, I think this is, there we go. So this is where the existing cob bench is. It has had a little bit of issues because of the weather, and we would love to be able to build a roof over top of it and reestablish it. And then just down the way here, we would like to build this trellis staircase that would feature things like hardy kiwis or grapes, which could be harvested by the community. And then in this little area, we thought it could be a nice little seating area with some ground cover, and those seats would also act as toolboxes for storage of tools and things like that. And then I'll pass it over to you for the next.
Thanks. For the remaining boulevard, we want to try the technique of growing a food forest, which is a gardening technique that imitates the relationships and patterns found in a forest ecosystem. It resembles a forest by integrating trees, shrubs, layers of herbs and flowers, all connected underground by an undisturbed mycelial web. Species are selected to play important ecological roles, and they work in symbiosis together to create a holistic system. And the design goal is to establish a healthy and balanced ecosystem that meets the needs of beneficial creatures such as pollinators, soil builders, and songbirds, for example. A food forest also provides gifts of food, medicine, and craft material for people, and at the same time provides a constant service of purifying the air and the water and regenerating the soil.
And we'll just make a quick note on these images. These are actually, taken from the Heart Gardens, which is in Roberts Creek, and that's been an established garden for about 7 years. So we're hoping to maybe do a little bit of mirroring of that garden as well.
Yeah, so this is just an overview of what's possible, and then this is how we imagine a pathway to weave through these perennial food plants that would grow back year after year, constantly, being there for people and being replenishing the soil. And above here, we have some examples of possible covered seating areas and a tool shed built, hopefully with natural building techniques such as cob, but also with a living roof and potential for water catchment. So every element of the site will be an opportunity for education on sustainable and regenerative techniques.
Thank you. Do you have more? Because we're getting, okay, good.
And this is an example of what it could look like at the beginning. We really want to have a really welcoming sign and something that's inviting, an archway that will invite people into the garden and have an overview of the educational aspects of the site, as well as a place for people to sit and enjoy.
And then just before we close, I wanted to mention about the fruit and the berries, because often there's a bit of a fear of what will happen if they fall over the ground. But we have a partnership with the Fruit Tree Project, and so an agreement has been made for that they will glean any excess of fruit and use it for processing and canning. And then finally, we just really wanted to emphasize that the hope for the project is that it will act as a legacy for all the future generations of this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a beautiful picture of Dawn. Questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Inkster? No? Yeah.
Now, are you, the two of you, are you Sechelt residents? No. Oh, okay.
One thing to note is that because we work for One Straw Society, it
Yeah.
serves the entire Sunshine Coast from Gibsons to Pender Harbor.
Okay, well, you had a local person involved. I think she lived up on Binnacle. I guess she's no longer involved. But the reason I asked is that a couple of years ago, about a year and a bit ago, there was some concern over the site. I don't know if you guys were aware, but it wasn't being sort of kept up and looked after in non-growing season. So with these new plans and that, and more infrastructure in place, and more of a gardeny feel that stretches out further, I have to say that I'm totally in support of community gardens, and I like the fact that you've used this land that wasn't otherwise being utilized. No one ever walked up on that side, off the sidewalk there. They just came down it. So I'm glad to see its use. I would just encourage and implore you to have a plan over a number of years to keep up with it, when you're not growing, and hopefully you'll do, certain seasonable vegetables and fruits so that you have something growing there all year. So there's an encouragement to grow, because there was some work that needed to be done away from the summer and make it look attractive so the community has continual buy-in to what a good idea it is. Yeah.
Should we respond?
If you could quickly.
Thank you for bringing that up. I think it's really important, and we have thought about that, and that's one of the reasons why we were wanting to go with perennial versus annual for the remaining part, just to be able to keep it looking beautiful throughout the year, and then we have the ability to grow things that will go longer term through the season. Thank you.
Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. I believe the District of Sechelt provided the initial funding to get this started with Don Robb. And then what the period Councillor Inkster was referring to was when it was prior to One Straw's involvement. And that's one of the reasons why you came on to help support that and expand it and move it forward. I understand our district staff also support. They come and they help with laying the beds, providing access to water, those types of things. And are you looking for that kind of support ongoingly as well from our staff?
Well, any support from the district is definitely welcomed, but we don't necessarily want to be relying on the District of Sechelt for all of those resources, which is partially why we want to incorporate more of these structures that will allow for things like water catchment. And we want to try to make the garden more sustainable. Mm-hmm.
Okay, one final comment.
Yes.
I like the idea that you're going to be coming forward with plans to us so that we can see and the community can see what is going to happen going forward. I know when the cob bench was initially put in, there wasn't an awareness around that, and so we at the district got a lot of questions about that. Like, what happened, where'd this come from, what is it, all of that kind of stuff. So advance information is very much welcome. Thank you.
Councillor Mueller.
Thank you. I have a couple questions just about One Straw in particular. Would you be able to answer those?
Likely.
Yeah. So I think anybody who's been around the Sunshine Coast for the last few years is aware of how active One Straw is and how many projects they've undertaken. So I'm just curious, how is the large organization funded? Is it membership based, or do you provide some ongoing funding?
So my current role is funded through Vancouver Coastal Health through their SMART Fund, and that's where the majority of our funding does come from. But we do have memberships that do support us for our administrative costs and things like that. And then we also are heavily volunteer run as well.
Have you any idea the number of volunteers that are Sechelt based?
I don't know if I can answer that question accurately. I'd have to look through our membership files, but I could probably follow up with you on that one if you wanted me to.
It's okay. I wanted to ask just mainly to get a ballpark kind of figure. I know that One Straw, if you go down to Roberts Creek, and I know you're connected down there with a whole bunch of different things going on, but that type of gardening is the kind of thing that works as long as people are doing it, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. So knowing that there's a membership base, active membership base in Sechelt, I'd love to see One Straw continue their work and expand it if possible. So basically just singing your praise, and thanks for coming.
Anything further? I just want to say that I have supported this project from the beginning, and I won't be on your list, but I have stopped and done some planting and have done some weeding. And I'm always amazed at the number of people that just in walking by stop and take part. So thank you for the work you do.
I just said one more. Have you guys set up a date for your spring planting party yet, or?
Not yet, but there is a visioning session on March 22nd that we would love to invite anyone to come to. It's just to help to come up with some firmer ideas for this project.
And where will that be?
We're location TBA.
Okay, keep us informed.
We will. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
TBA, nice place, got a garden.
Well, that moves us to proclamations, which we have none. So we will go to item number 5.1, minutes of the 4 p.m. regular council meeting of February 17th. Could I have a motion to receive? Seconded. Questions or comments? Errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Item 5.2, 7 p.m. regular council meeting of February 17th. Motion to adopt? Second, all in questions or comments? Errors or omissions? Yes.
Thank you. On page 10, we have recommendation 6 and recommendation 7, and they seem to be, it appears that they're both approved. And then on page 14, we have recommendation 64 that actually takes recommendation 6 back to the Finance, Culture, and Economic Development Committee meeting. So I'm confused what's happening with 6 and 7.
So we have moved to look for an alternate site and recommended acquisition. And which resolution on 14?
24? I think it was 24.
24 is bursaries.
Hang on. I found it here. No, it's 64. It's underneath 24. Resolution number 64-02.
Okay, that's placement again. Recommendation number 6 of the committee be referred back. So that's the placement again. It's been referred back to the committee.
So in other words, if we pass these as they are, we've resolved that we're purchasing it, but the placement of it is being referred back to committee for decision.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are you comfortable with that? Is that the way you read it? Councillor Inkster.
You know, I looked at these minutes, and I thought that they need to be cleaned up a little bit, because it's not 100% clear where we're going. I know, and council knows, that we're going to purchase the art piece, and that there's some further discussion to be had at the Finance Committee regarding its location, whether it stays in the center or is moved off to the side. So I understand that, and I know that that was what was said at council, but it's not real clear in the minutes. So I was going to leave them as is because I knew what we intended to do, but it needs to be, in a sense, cleaned up. So if in fact we need to ask that that be done, it would be good to maybe ask Mr. Vanderwerf to look at them and clean it up a little bit so it's clearer what the intention is.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We did spend a fair amount of time on this issue because it was a trifle convoluted at the meeting, and we listened to the record afterwards. And in some cases, when it's clear what is meant by council, but it didn't happen clearly, we can do something with it. In this case, it was rather convoluted, but we needed to reflect it exactly the way it was because that is the way it was. Yes, it was initially decided one way, and then the mayor suggested that we take it back to the committee, just with respect to the placement of it. So I'm satisfied this reflects what happened at the meeting.
That's what I needed to hear. Thank you. Anything further on that? So we have a motion. All those in favor of adopting? Opposed? Carried. Thank you to staff. 7.1. We have summary of the recommendations of the Planning and Community Development Committee meeting, February 24th, pages 20 to 22. Could we have a motion to receive and endorse? Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Councillor Shanks.
Yes. The only comment that I wish to make is with respect to business items recommendation number 4 to 9, the SSC properties. And I only ask or request this information for members of council just to put things in perspective, albeit that it's a very different proposal than the original Silverback. I would like to request that the financial and infrastructure commitments of Silverback be brought to the FCED meeting next week, just for our perusal and as a comparison.
Is that a motion?
I'd like to make an motion.
Is there a seconder? Comments?
Oh,
Councillor.
yeah, interesting. I was at that meeting when that was hotly discussed in 2008, May 5th, 2008. It's indelibly marked in my memory. As to it would be, yes. It was quite a lengthy meeting at the Seaside Center with a lot of discussion about those particular pieces, and as one that argued very strongly for some financial commitment for the people of Sechelt, I'm gladly seconding this for a comparison. I'm glad it was brought up. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. I'd just like some clarification on what the motion is. The one that is in the minutes indicates that we're requesting the minutes come back to council when all the council members are present. So I'm looking, for clarification as to what we're looking to have this come back to the Finance Committee meeting for.
Councillor Shanks.
It'll give us the opportunity, if we wish to pass comment or have any discussion on it prior to the March 16th meeting.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have some of the same problem with this recommendation, and I'm not sure that I'm willing to approve it in this meeting tonight when it says, in fact, it should be brought back when all council members are present, and that would be March the 16th. And so for me, I believe that this recommendation probably needs to come back when all council members are here and March 16th. And I'd like some, if somebody could help me with that, I would appreciate it.
I'll try and help you. We are not right now discussing recommendation in these minutes. We're asking through a resolution for staff to bring information to us regarding a different matter than that resolution. Does that help? Oh, good. No problem. It's best to ask. Councillor Seegers?
Thank you. Then could we be clear in the motion as to what information we're actually asking staff to bring forward to us so that they'll be prepared and have that information for us at the meeting?
Yeah, I think the motion is fairly clear. There were financial and infrastructure commitments made at that time. And that's all I'm asking for. At the time that the Silverback was approved.
So are we all ready with this motion? Could you read back the motion, please?
That the financials and infrastructure commitments made at the time that Silverback was approved be brought to the FCED meeting next week. I think it's next week. Yeah.
Thank you. Is everyone clear? So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. So now we have before us, we haven't voted on item 7.1. We need receipt and endorsement of the recommendation. We had it moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Item 7.2, Public Works, Parks and Environment Committee, February 24th for receipt and endorsement, pages 23 to 25. Moved, seconded. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. We have no bylaws before us. We have no new business, but we have business item 10.1. SIL and SRS directors. You have before you a report from the interim corporate officer, pages 26 to 30. Could we have a motion to receive? Moved, seconded. All those, any comments or questions around receipt? All those in favor? In favor? Thank you. To our corporate officer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This issue was brought to council's attention earlier, and these are housekeeping items really that came from the solicitors. Once we had identified 3 directors that the inspector municipalities could agree to, council agreed to that. The names were sent to the solicitors, and they have incorporated them into the proper resolutions that are required for both SIL and SRS. And there will be additional ones as time passes, but these are the 3 that I've been sent to date to deal with, and we need to deal with them in a timely fashion. The audits are pending on those 2 corporations.
Thank you. Comments or questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, through you to staff. There's one name listed here is no longer employed with the District of Sechelt, and there's another one who potentially may be replaced in short order. So I'm just curious if some type of arrangement has been made for those people to stay on, or what's the situation with that?
Yeah, yes, Madam Mayor. It was intentional to pick people who were on contract because the Articles of Incorporation prohibited employees from being directors. And we had to do a fair amount of negotiating with the Inspector of Municipalities in terms of defining what an employee was and wasn't. And this was a solution that everyone could agree to. Unfortunately, the Articles of Incorporation aren't identical, and so for the one of the two, each time one of the contract employees are no longer under contract with the district, we'll have to redo the appointment, but the individuals, all three individuals agreed to continue to be directors after their contracts have expired. It's just that you'll then be faced with having to reappoint, unless you've come up with a different solution in the interim, which would probably make everybody happy.
Councillor Seegers.
So what I'm hearing is we need to put somebody in place so we can actually do our legislated requirements with regards to filing, and then we can look at what we need to do to address the situation going forward.
That's correct. If you have a long-term plan for these corporations, definitely then you want to be looking at other directorships. This was just a patchwork approach to it, just to get us through the audit period and to move on as we need to at year end.
Okay, I'll move recommendation number 2.
Seconder? Comments or questions? Thank you. All those in favor? Now, yes.
Could I make a motion that once this process is done, that our staff look at coming forward with some kind of recommendation for how we can proceed with this?
Seconder
For,
to
to
that?
change, to address whatever needs.
Yeah, yes, Madam Mayor, and yes, the Chief Financial Officer and I will certainly be working on that together.
Thank you. We won't set a date then. Is there a seconder? All those in favor? Carried. Item 10.2, Sechelt Fire Protection District request for waiving of fees, page 31 to 35. Report from the planner.
Motion to receive. Sorry. Motion to receive.
Any questions? No. All in favor? That's carried. And we have a recommendation in front of us that council waive the minor development fee of $300 and the building permit fee of $2,500 for the Sechelt Fire Department's application for the construction of 2 buildings, a live fire burn building and a storage garage building for the property. And it's Block B of District Lot 4310, address 5940 Mason Road. Who would like to speak to this?
I'll move recommendation number 2. This is a valuable service to our community, and this is their training facility. So I'm totally in favor of supporting this.
And it was seconded by Doug Wright. A statement from...
Well, I think this is the least we could do for our retiring fire chief.
Any other comments or questions?
So this is just a question, then a comment if possible.
Push your button, please.
Push again. I just wanted to ask, Bill's here, so might as well use you while you're here, Bill. I mean, you've been waiting. This is just simply a movement on our tax forms from one column to the other, not collected through the fire protection, but the District of Sechelt sort of goes through our system. Okay. And is this your last time you're going to be in front of us? Madam Chair, I think that we should, at least yourself or council should shake Bill's hand.
I would gladly shake his hand and thank him for his years of service. Thank you.
Worship first, I hug the mayor.
It's televised too.
Well, there's something about a good-looking fireman, yeah. So did we vote on that after all?
We did, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now for the fun part, councillors' reports. I will start with Councillor Shanks.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Not too much to talk about, actually, but the highlight of the last couple of weeks for me was attending the AGM of the Downtown Business Association last week, where I wasn't the highlighted guest speaker, but I was one of the guest speakers. And so I'll just reminisce about a few of those things that I actually had to mention, or did mention at that time. A lot of people don't realize that I came here along with my family in 1975. And my older brother, by a couple of years, came here in 1979 as the replacement clerk for the village of Sechelt. And then my parents came here in 1982. So I was sort of reminiscing with my brother, and he said in 1979 when he came, there were actually 3 employees, himself, a clerk, and a public works person. And the public works building was the little shed behind currently the Arts Center. And I always remember that the public works person at that time used to broom sweep Cowrie Street, was the main street, from one end to the other, and that took a few number of hours. But I often remark it's probably never been cleaner, sort of thing. But yeah, interesting things. The actual village office was on Inlet Avenue, which is where the Phoenix School is currently. And it was approximately 2/3 of the size of the main floor at that time. And then between 79 and 86, the additional, half of the building or third of the building was added on, plus the second floor. So by 1986, when we incorporated into the district-wide municipality that, took in West Sechelt, West Porpoise Bay, the village, East Porpoise Bay, Tawanik, Jellicum Bay, Selma Park, Davis Bay, Wilson Creek. We went from a population overnight about 1,170 to 4,800. But what was interesting in the election at that time when I was running for office for the first time was we had the meeting up at the high school. And if memory serves, one of the questions fired at myself from the audience was, what are you going to do about the nepotism issues with your brother being the administrator and you being the politician? And once they explained what nepotism meant to me, I was able to answer sort of thing. So I said, well, it's really quite simple. I understand I'm an elected official that creates policy, and my brother will have to carry that out as the administrator. So, but a lot of things happened. We had Mayor Bud Kosh at that time, who used to own the GM dealership on Wharf Street. Christine Woods got a lot of this information sort of thing. And he really was a car dealer type of person in terms of how he dealt with his council, which was often quite amusing because he'd invite us over to his office at the dealership sort of thing and give us his perspective on various issues to get our support. But when we came to vote on the issue, each person had been told a different story sort of thing in order to get their support. So we did have some conflicts at that time. But no, he had a huge amount of vision. He, of course, acquired the 8 plus or minus acres right here that we're sitting on, which at that time expanded from the original Gilligan's structure all the way to Shorncliffe, from Toreto to Cowrie Street. And the original intent and thinking was, yes, it would accommodate a new municipal hall and library, as well as offering additional space for provincial and federal governments who might be interested in, and the regional district who might be interested in renting space from us. But yeah, that was in '87. The grand purchase of the 8 acres was $550,000, a huge bargain at that time. And then shortly after that, the province stepped up and gave us a lot of money for, equipment that we're going to need in public works. They gave us the Crown grant of 58 acres up beside the arena to initially accommodate a golf course, and then we acquired another 30 acres of leased Crown land in order to accommodate 18 holes. The thing was logged. The money from the logging went into clearing it. And then, unbeknown to a lot of people, the Olsen brothers, Dennis and Russ, stepped up and basically created our first golf course up here. So that's just a little bit of a snapshot of some of the things that happened. So it was nice to reminisce, and they had maps there showing the different businesses that were in the downtown area at that time, and those are on view in the archives, and I'm sure we'll bring those out again. But it was nice to reminisce, and we had a good turnout. The guest speaker was a gentleman who was brought in at basically the 11th hour, and he did an extremely good speech in terms of retail business on the Sunshine Coast and what we have to offer in the new economy. He basically said, 25% of people will shop wherever they can get the lowest price. So he said, don't think you're going to compete with the Walmarts or the Costcos of this world. He said, and then there's another 20% that will always buy quality products at the top end of the scale, sort of thing, in terms of price. And even if they don't have the money, they will save up the money to buy the quality. So you have to deal with 55% of the overall population. So he said the name of the game for you people is to provide exceptional service and quality of knowledge about your products. And that's the market you have to cater to. And he said, and you've got a head start in terms of selling people on the area because of the beautiful area that you live in. But the name of your game is service. And I picked up on that. And after the meeting, I said, not that we're lacking sort of thing, but some people think that we might. But you do workshops for municipalities, where we're providing exceptional service. And he said, actually, he does. And he's done it down in the States. And there's a reserve down there, apparently close to Seattle, where they are oriented to provide nothing but service, and there's nothing that they can't do within their municipality. It's never an option in terms of telling people no. It's adapting to what can be done for them. So I thought that was interesting. But it was a good evening, and there were several recipients who actually received being in business for at least 30-year awards. There was 22 recipients. And when you look down, you see a lot of these places sort of thing. And it was quite interesting for those people to go up and get their awards. And so it was very interesting and very enjoyable for me. So that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Mueller.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the past couple of weeks, I've worked with Council Wright and our new CAO on various aspects of the recruitment process. We've been, our new CAO has set ambitious targets to fill those positions, and we've been trying to support him as best as we can. I also attended the public engagement on the 2016 budget here. Some of you were here. And as well, I had an accessibility advisory committee, and it's on a bit of a sad note that I make these remarks. Over the past month, the accessibility advisory committee lost one of its longstanding members, Mr. Robert Paulin. Many of you may know him as Bob. He was among Sechelt's most engaged citizens and a regular participant of the town hall process, sending in letters and making his opinions heard. He was an advocate for all accessibility issues in the district, but especially for the visually and audiologically impaired. For many of you who have not sat on that council, you may know that in the accessibility, there are so many issues related to accessibility that there often is not staff time to deal with, so it has a part of a working feel to it, with committee members often doing work that's outside of their scope just to get things handled, and Bob was very much a part of that. And So with that, I would assume that staff may have already sent condolences on the behalf of the district to Sechelt, but once again, like to offer the condolences, and perhaps we can follow that up with an official letter to Robert's wife, Anita. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Seeger.
Thank you. Let me just pull up this. Okay. Oh, there's been a few things over the last couple of weeks. I attended the Coast Community Builders Association AGM. They're looking to revitalize that association. Good turnout, and so it'll be interesting to see what they put together going forward. Councillor Shanks and I attended a Library Municipal Hall Building Committee, and plans are moving forward with the library to come up with some ideas for potential designs that could be used, and those would be coming back to council once that process is a little further along. I attended also the library AGM, and there are 3 new members that have stepped forward to sit on that board, and I'd like to acknowledge 2 members who have actually stepped down now. As per the library's bylaws, no member can stay on the board for longer than 8 years, and we had 2 members who were on for 8 years, and they have since now stepped down, Dan Fivehouse and Pat Harvey. So I'd like to acknowledge them for their years of service, and I'm sure that they will be coming back around once they've taken some time off. Councillor Lutz and I actually attended the community meeting for wood fiber LNG, hosted by our MP, Pamela Goldsmith-Jones. It was at the Heritage Playhouse, and they probably could have had a facility twice as large. So, because a number of people had to be turned away, I'm sure. It was full by about 10 to 7, or 10 to 5, sorry, or 5:30, whatever the time was it started. It was full about 10 minutes before. It was very respectful. People got up and spoke their mind. One of the comments, or one of the questions that was given to, Ms. Goldsmith-Jones was that, all of the people at the event actually spoke out against wood fiber LNG. And so they're wondering, has there actually been anybody stepping forward and saying they're in favor? She said, yes. She said, this is only one way to get information in. She said, you'd be surprised that it's probably about 50-50, 50% for and 50% against. So there's still a lot of debate out there. She did outline the process for people so they know what the process is going forward. And I think that information will be coming out more widely throughout the community. So it was a very good meeting, very well handled, and it was really nice to see the people coming forward. What else have I got here? I attended the e-town hall meeting as well on the operational budget, and some interviews today that we had with staff. I'm going to be representing the district of Sechelt this coming Saturday. The Knights of Columbus on the Sunshine Coast here received their charter in 1994. So they're celebrating their 22nd year in our community. So I'll be representing the district of Sechelt on Saturday at their charter dinner. And so I just want to make them, acknowledge their service to our community. Thank you.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. Attended the same AGM for the Downtown Business Association. Had a number of SCRD meetings, Planning and Development Committee, 2 board meetings, Corporate and Admin Services Committee, Policing Commission, Transportation Committee. And out of the Transportation Committee, there was a couple of things that I want to make note of for the public. Berth number 1 is going to be shut down in January, February, and March 2017. And so they'll...
Get a warning?
No, just for the 3 months for repair. Secondly, on Sunday, July the 10th, 2015, the overflow parking lot is going to be closed. It has to do with the bike races and things that are going to be happening up here. There's a bus lay-by that is going to be happening at Selma Park, at the bottom of Selma Park Road. and the fixed link study consultant contract has been awarded. Having said that, coming back to District of Sechelt business, Planning and Development Committee, Public Works, Councillor Mueller alluded to it. We spent at least 3 days with the Personnel Committee doing interviews, and of course the public engagement meeting on the budget last night. In addition to that, I also met with the Sandy Hook Community Association and spoke to them. It was a very interesting evening. Spent about 2 hours answering questions for them. And lastly, but not least, I was at the local Scottish restaurant in town here one day with my wife, and a member of the public came up to my wife and said to my wife, "I want to thank you for sharing your husband with the District of Sechelt, because I know it cuts a lot into the family time." And I thought, that's a really interesting thing. And I wasn't going to share that tonight, but somebody asked me to share that sitting at this table. So we hear all of the bad things. We hear all of the complaints. I wanted to share that one with you. It applies to all of us sitting up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Inkster.
Thanks. It was, once again, I'll touch on the AGM that the SDBA put on, because it was such a well-attended event, so well-organized, and just to see a diverse number of people there. I soon figured out why a number of them were there, but it's good that they came to receive the recognition. And Councillor Shanks talking about some of the history of Sechelt. I was hoping he'd talk about the four stop signs when I first moved here in the middle of town that are now set to lights. But he did talk about what Block 7 was bought for, and I'm not going to tell you what we bought the piece off of, but that was over
exactly what you.
Yeah, exactly. That was over $549,975 more dollars than Manhattan, but it's still not a bad deal, I guess, overall. But that also means that if you talk about amounts like that, and the fact that we got recognized for our 30th anniversary, our business, that we paid almost $1 million in taxes to the District of Sechelt. So,
We appreciate it.
yeah, thank you. That's part of being a commercial activity in a town. It was good for the SDBA to do the numbers. How many businesses did they recognize for the 30th? 22. Yeah. You mentioned that. 22 businesses. I mean, that's well done. They probably forgot or missed a couple that they'll probably do or will do, but just to recognize those numbers of businesses, and then for us to think back what those businesses originally looked like, those that have lived here long enough, and what the credit union looked like and things like that. So well done for them to fill that place and recognize all those businesses. And it was almost an idea. It's almost like, did that idea come from Connie? I'm just being facetious, but it was a good idea. And Connie's not saying anything, but maybe it did. But good for them for recognizing that, and I'm sure that we'll do things similar with our 30th. And I have an idea for another person for some of our ideas, Connie. So I'll tell you later. The other thing I wanted to mention is the health event that Councillor Lutz and I were at, the health seminar, Vancouver Coastal in Vancouver. I'm going to prepare a more extensive report for next council meeting. Just been so busy the last week. But basically it was about health determinants in a community, and basically what it said, what we gathered from that meeting, and Councillor Lutz may speak more to some of the things in a healthy community, is that if everything is the same amongst all of us, if we all are the same, the determinant of our better health is wealth. That's basically one of the things we took away from that. So everything else is the same genetics and same weather and stuff like that. That wealth is determinant of living longer. So that's interesting to have heard that. And there was one other thing I wanted to mention of it. No, I'll give a more full report on that one next time. Thank you.
Thank you. As has been said, it's been a busy couple of weeks. And for me as acting mayor, I've had the support of the staff, and that's been really good. I attended a Youth Action Advisory Committee meeting last Friday, and they too have been having some work with the public health around healthy schools and workshops. The Healthy Communities thing in North Vancouver that Councillor Inkster and I attended, out of the networking, I was able to meet 2 different communities that have some working relationships with other levels of government for maintaining their sports fields. And that's becoming an issue here on the coast that's being talked at with the band, with the communities, and with the regional districts. So I'll get back in touch with those 2 communities to find out their maintenance agreements and how they're doing that, because I think it's getting to the stage where we need to do some joint use type arrangements. I also attended the LNG and found that really interesting. It was the wrong site. The sound was not good, and it was a shame that people had to be turned away, but it's good that people are showing the interest too. I also, with members of the regional district, went on almost a tour of the AGB logging site up Field Road, and that was interesting. It was a really beautiful sunny day, but the water that was pouring down the mountainside was quite amazing. And I know we'll have a report at the regional district from the water workers, and they'll let us know what their findings happening at that site. I was really pleased to be at the SDBA's AGM and listen to Councillor Shanks talk the history, and I think that he was the major guest speaker. Ted Topping was very good, but I think that was the major part of the event. I got to hand out the plaques and shake hands with businesses that had been here for 30 years or more, and actually admitted to having worked for the Port Mellon Industries Credit Union 48 years ago. I was so young. Before it amalgamated with the Roberts Creek and the Pender Harbor Credit Union to become the Sunshine Coast Credit Union. So that was kind of fun to think back to those days. And looking forward on what day? Thursday of this week, I am going into West Vancouver to take greetings to the Governor General of Canada on behalf of Sechelt. So that should be a hoot. And that's my report. Thanks. So you have before you in your package the SCRD report, and I'll just leave it at that. We're getting a little late into the evening. Item 12 is council correspondence for receipt. Yes, Councillor Seegers, move receipt. Seconder? Any questions or comments around the correspondence? Councillor Mueller.
Thanks. I note in here the Government Financial Officers Association Award for financial reporting. I'm just wondering, we might need a place up there in the lobby for some of these awards just to display them for the staff, especially that worked on them, and in the community so they can be proud of them as well.
Yes, that's a good point. Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. In the letter, it actually indicates that they'd like to arrange for a formal presentation and, you know, a press release and all of that. So I'd like to refer that to staff to manage that.
Is that a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments? I would just like to say that this award, I really think that we do need to celebrate it. not just finance, but all of the district. I know that our annual report is something that Ms. Jordison works on very hard every year, and that's part of all of this. So I just want to congratulate everybody for work involved with this. And we have a motion that, do you want to repeat it for us, please?
Sure. Let me see what I can say. That staff arrange for a formal presentation of the award and that the appropriate publicity be given.
So that's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. I'm sorry? Ooh, yes. All those in favor of receipt? Thank you. Okay. Under item 13, Councillor Shanks would like to make a comment.
Yeah, just a reminder, we have the public hearing on the Spanish development tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. All those can attend, please attend. It's here, yes. And do we have a quorum in terms of attending that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm away, so
Right.
we need,
I'll chair it, sir.
Perfect.
That's not a problem.
thank you. Perfect. So a motion to adjourn? Moved, seconded? All those in favor? Questions or comments from our audience? Yes, Christine.